out to Socrates. Socrates still trying to get the opening. Oh, Socrates! Whoa!
And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Maggie Thatcher, can you hear me? Maggie Thatcher, your boys took a hell of a beating. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Welcome to 1979-80 Revisited from the lexicon of your boys took hell of a beating. We are going international for the first time this season. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been international football prior to the last midweek in November of 1979. But this one has quite a burden, really. England versus Bulgaria, a game that took place on Thursday the 22nd of November, Dave. Fogged off to much chaos 24 hours earlier. Ted Croker of the FA declared that the referee needed to wait until the last possible moment to say whether the game could take place or not. He waited until 25 minutes prior to kick-off. There are plenty of people on through the turnstiles already, on the terraces. Wembley is gridlocked. There's chaos outside as people try to get in. The game's called off. Everyone is turned away. 84,500 tickets have been sold for this one, Dave. It's all teed up to be the game in which England qualify for the 1980 European Championship finals. The first time that England will have qualified for the major tournament for 10 years. I get the interest in it, I do. Earlier in the day, Northern Ireland have beaten the Republic of Ireland, as called at the time, more often than not, or ERA, as Ira, whichever pronunciation we want to take, but very few people just call them simply Ireland at this point in time. Northern Ireland have defeated them 1-0. It's made the game in the evening academic in terms of England needing something to qualify. So it's an evening of celebration ahead. The fog descends. The game's called off, Dave. There's an iconic picture of Kevin Keegan on the pitch with his thumbs down about the situation because there is ambiguity. Hamburg are unlikely and indeed don't let him play the following night because they've an important Bundesliga fixture on the Saturday. They're not on for it. Send our man back. The fog, the chaos. 30 of that 84,500 that were due to they're paid to watch a football match, and they're being hastily told that there will be no refunds, but all tickets will be applicable for tomorrow evening. Within that, England do scalp 12,000 off that. There's 12,000 who don't return. People have come from all over the country as part of this. Yeah, top heavy with London clientele, but there will have been people from the provinces from all over the place that have come for this, where it's just not feasible to say, all right, I'll come back tomorrow. Dave, the chaos of surrounding England versus Bulgaria.
Yes, and somewhere in a church in Newcastle, Terry Collier and Bob Ferris are hiding, trying to avoid the result on Wednesday night for Match of the Day. England F. Yeah, well, I mean, where do we start with all of this stuff? I mean, you've got to have a national stadium somewhere, I suppose, but it is always this thing about, if you live in Newcastle, you live in Liverpool, you live in Birmingham, or, wherever. Getting to London is not the easiest thing in the world in the middle of the week. The trains probably wouldn't have been running and, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I'm amazed, to be honest, only 12,000 people didn't turn up the second night because, even from, if you're in London, you've probably already got something sorted out for your Thursday. So it's in the finish, it's actually a pretty good crowd. And I think that speaks of just what a miraculous thing this was, that England were actually going to go to a major tournament after a decade of being nowhere. I mean, internationals in November always at that period kind of conjured up Poland and the catastrophe of 1973. So I mean, it was always something about that. But to actually go to the European Championships, and a proper European Championships at that, with 8 teams involved, it was a big deal. No wonder it was a good crowd to start with, and then but to let people into the stadium. I mean, I know fog is a slightly different thing because it can suddenly clear, but to let thousands of people into a stadium, and then 25 minutes before say, sorry lads, off you go, you better go home now. I mean, it's amazing there wasn't a riot, particularly in the late 1970s. So I mean, Wembley's come up pretty unscathed from that, to be perfectly honest. And poor old Kevin Keegan, not going to be the the captain, and not going to play now because he's got to head back to Hamburg. As we've seen, it's an important period for Hamburg. So it's all kinds of chaos, and of course this does mean elevation for Phil Thompson, as we find out later on in another interview. But much to his surprise, it's his brother who works out that Phil Thompson is going to be the England captain. Phil Thompson himself has no idea that it's coming. So,
and Phil Thompson's mum seemed quite disappointed about the situation as well.
Yeah, Phil Thompson in a hangdog interview after the game that's coming up later on in the next paragraph but one. I think my mum prefers Kevin to me. Truly knows.
Absolutely, she was bitterly disappointed that Kevin Keegan wasn't available to deny her son the captain's armband for England. Absolute gold. In the build-up to this one, Keegan is quite, front and centre. A lot of attention on him. There's been that documentary that we've spoken about. Brian Moore meets Kevin Keegan, which was such an eye opener. Even all these years on, it's an amazing piece of television. So yeah, he's front and centre to a lot of the coverage. As is Tony Woodcock. He's completed his transfer to FC Cologne, signing the contract in a Heathrow hotel before teaming up with the England squad. There's also the looming international debut of Glenn Hoddle. This is being mooted over the days leading up to it. There is also lots of back page conjecture. Don't shame us. England players angered by fans who boo the anthem. This isn't kind of like God Save the Queen being booed at this point in time. Liverpool hasn't risen to those type of levels of distaste with the establishment of the UK just yet. But this is all to do with England fans booing opposing national anthems. So yeah, the players don't want to. Not in our name is basically the message being sent out by the England squad on this. There is also a free Europe exiles plea from Ron Greenwood. FIFA is looking into the possibility of making international call-ups compulsory in terms of players released by their clubs, Dave. Ron Greenwood backs the proposal, somewhat unsurprisingly. Thoughts on this revolutionary idea of clubs having to release their players for international duty should the players wish to do so and they're called on by their nation?
It seems a different world, doesn't it? It's 40 odd years ago, but now with all the organisation around these international breaks, football stops for 2 weeks so we can have internationals, and they jet off to Australia and back to Brazil and God knows where else to get in internationals. And this idea that your club could just say, nah, you're not going, is amazing. Of course, it was always unenforceable because I think it was Don Revie in his pre-England days who always had a sheaf of medical certificates already written out in his top drawer and he's in his office at Leeds ready to decide that Paul Madeley or John Giles couldn't go to an international or whatever. So there was always a way of getting around it, but it just seems bizarre that it was ever a choice. It's still an uneasy truce between the two elements of the game anyway, isn't it? With players going off and possibly getting injured, players can go and break a leg or do the cruciate or God knows what else while they're away on international duty and be out for 6 months while the club's still paying them and all of that and all the difficulties it means in terms of, team selection and stuff. So it's always going to be an iffy kind of area. And I do wonder if we should just think about making internationals in the summer only. And sort of organising it in that way, and everything is a tournament of sorts played every summer. But that's a podcast for another channel and another day. But yeah, it was inevitably going to sort of drift that way, wasn't it? That FIFA and UEFA were going to flex the muscles eventually and make it compulsory.
Yeah, from an England perspective, this is more to do with Laurie Cunningham. Yes, Keegan's been denied playing in this one, but an England game, with a Hamburg game less than 48 hours ahead of this one, I get Hamburg pulling this one. As part of Woodcock's contract with Cologne, there's guarantees that he will be released to play for England. It's Real Madrid who have been the biggest sticking point, shall we say, when it comes to Laurie Cunningham. Keep more Keegan content in the build-up to the game that he never played in. He's been awarded the International Football Book Sword of Honour, Dave. Presented to him by Bill Shankly in London. Keegan left Shankly almost speechless when he handed the sword to Shankly, saying, "I would like Bill to accept the sword for all the things he has done for my career. He made me believe I could be a footballer. a great touch from Keegan, but also he's possibly worried that he's not going to get sold through customs on the way back to Hamburg feasibly as well there. Bill Shankly does go on to say that, contrary to popular belief, he does like London. It's a fine place. They could just do with a decent football team now.
Excellent work. No, it is a nice touch from Keegan, and perfectly fair enough, because now Bill Shankly, where does Kevin Keegan end up in the finish? I suppose. It was Shankly who lit the touch paper, wasn't it, for Keegan's career? But I don't know how you would explain getting a sword through customs, having just played for England. It's a bit bizarre.
Absolutely, it would. The previous day, England had won the corresponding under-21 fixture at Filbert Street 5-0. Garth Crooks with a hat-trick, all looking, an international footballer in the making, by every means. While Vince Hilaire is outstanding, a great night for black footballers, Dave. I think this goes under the radar. This one, just how good Garth Crooks and Vince Hilaire were for that England under-21 side at that point in time. Yet neither will go on to win an England cap, for varying reasons. The fluctuations of Crystal Palace setting back Hilaire. But Garth Crooks is a bit of an anomaly, certainly in the first half of the 1980s when he's motoring along with Tottenham eventually.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a bit of what we were talking about, I think, in the previous paragraph. It was an era where there were fewer England games and where fewer substitutes. And managers, particularly in that era, Ron Greenwood, once you were in Ron Greenwood's team, it was much more difficult to get out of it, really, than anything else. But I was looking at the England team that we'll come on to for this Bulgaria game, and it's a pretty young team. Viv Anderson, 23, Kenny Sanson, 21, Phil Thompson's only 25, Ray Wilkins, 23, Kevin Reeves, who gets his debut, 22, Glenn Hoddle, 22, Trevor Francis, 25, Ray Kennedy's 28, Tony Woodcock, 23. So there's only Dave Watson and Ray Clements over the age of 30 in that team. So, it's already a team that's kind of forming and has already got a lot of young players in there. If they continue to do the job and they're relatively injury-free, it's difficult to break into that side. And there were lots of really good players over that period. We talked about Dennis Mortimer in the last one as a for instance. Gary Shaw was another at the Villa who never really got a chance. Cyril Regis, obviously, at the Albion. I think five caps over the piece. It was just very, very difficult to get into that team. You've got Kevin Keegan and Trevor Brooking to come back into that side as well. So it was a tough team to get into, and there wasn't the experimentation, the number of aimless qualification games that you get for England these days. Usually England have pretty much qualified after 4 games in the group, and there's another 6 to play, and you can muck about with it a bit more. Back then, every game kind of counted, so it was really tough. But it is hard to imagine that Garth Crooks didn't get a cap or two at some stage, and plenty of others as well. But it was #different times.
It was indeed. As mentioned, Kevin Reeves is the man drafted in to replace Kevin Keegan in the number 7 shirt. The list of substitutes is impressive as well, none of whom actually make it onto the pitch in this game. Phil Neal, Peter Shilton, Trevor Cherry, Terry McDermott, Steve Coppell. Bob Latchford's run a recall to this squad. He can't even make the bench. There is an embarrassment of riches. It's that argument of the difference between the fine football and the world-class footballer. Yes, you can make those arguments about how many of that set of players are world-class, but you don't have to be a world-class player to make up the component parts of a very good football team. This is an England, as 1979 draws to a close, that are in rude health, as you intimated with the ages you rattled off there.
Absolutely. There's a lot of very good players around. As you say, the difference is Kevin Keegan aside, Ray Clements aside, is the world class players in amongst that lot? Probably not. But there was, I suppose Glenn Hoddle would be the one. We'll talk about it at length shortly. But were the world class players there for England? What there was a lot of very, very good players who were all much of a muchness. There was a lot of players of a certain level, and you could have picked anyone from 8 forwards to go in that side alongside Kevin Keegan. You could have picked probably any one of half a dozen midfielders to play in that team who weren't even in the squad, and it wouldn't have particularly reduced the quality of the England side. I think what we were short of was those difference makers. The ones that do go on and win World Cups and European Championships. That was the thing. But in terms of getting into the team, it was very difficult because there was, as you say, an embarrassment of riches. There was a big load of players of that same level of ability, and if you were coming through and somebody was already playing well, if Ray Wilkins, for instance, is already playing well in that England team, well, he's going to be there for the next 7 or 8 years. Hard luck.
The game itself, BBC coverage, Sports Night, the peerless Barry Davis at the microphone. Everything seems quite right, Dave, with Barry Davis on an England game. Without a shadow of a doubt, it doesn't sound right if it's anyone else. England make a fast start. We have about 8 minutes of coverage of this on YouTube. So obviously there's huge swathes that we don't know about and we don't get to see. But Dave Watson's quite front and centre. In an attacking capacity for England in the early stages of the footage we've got anyway. There's a shot blocked on the line, a Francis flick on from a corner, and before long it's Watson who opens the scoring. He's not taking that one near misses as kind of like his precursor to just dropping back to the job he's meant to be doing in the back line. He's kind of like, no, I'm having a goal tonight, and he gets one. It's Glenn Hoddle that sets it up. On his debut, the yin and yang in terms of experience at international level, the oldest player in the England starting lineup being set up by the newest cap.
I mean, whether it's editorial bias because it's an England game or what, I mean, the 8 minutes that we get is pretty much one-way traffic. So England are largely camped in the Bulgarian half through all of this. They get a couple of early corners. Really good run by Trevor Francis actually at the first corner to
yes.
To get a flicked header on at the near post, and as you say, Watson has his first effort cleared off the line and then skies it over the bar from about
that's right.
2 yards. But as you say, not put off by any of that. There's another one, a corner to Glenn Hoddle on the corner of the box, and he just chips an archetypal Glenn Hoddle cross into the corner of the 6-yard box, and there's Dave Watson to loop his header in for 1-0. And I mean, from Glenn Hoddle's perspective, it's a perfect start. It's Glenn Hoddle doing what Glenn Hoddle does. I mean, that's the startling thing about the admittedly 8 minutes that we get to see. All of this is Glenn Hoddle just being Glenn Hoddle. There's no trying to force him to be anything other than what he is. It's just now whether that's because the quality of the opposition's not up to much, particularly, or with it being a dead game, there's a lot more freedom. Whatever, I don't know what it is, but in an alternative universe, this is the first step for Glenn Hoddle to going on and winning 100 caps and being the fulcrum of the England side for the next 10 years, which of course doesn't happen. But I mean, you can see in these 8 minutes, a possible alternative future, can't you?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. They say Trevor Francis, big mention for him. He's involved in the vast majority of these fine openings that England produce. For a player that sometimes gets moving into the 1980s at the very least, is ability or his propensity to drift onto the periphery of games to just drop out of sight sometimes will go on to blight him. But this is still a Francis at the peak of his powers. He's the £1 million man or the £999,999 man, depending on which slant you want to say. That pressure of the transfer fee would eventually kind of weigh on him a huge amount. But Francis is very impressive in the footage that we got to see.
It's a very interesting career, Trevor Francis, because I mean, again, being from around this area, I remember him appearing as a 16-year-old, the golden boy at Birmingham City in 71, 72, was it, whatever. And there was always Trevor Francis was going to be, the greatest thing since sliced bread. He was going to be the saviour of English football. Right the way through, there was always, I think it was always unfair on Trevor Francis. However good he was, whatever he did, if he scored 3 goals, they expected him to score 4. There was always, yes, he's brilliant, but shouldn't he be a bit more than this? Shouldn't there be a bit more? Shouldn't he be the greatest player in the world or something? And he was a terrific player, a really, really top-class player. And, if you take away all those peripheral bits, the 16-year-old and the £1 million and all of that, he has a very, very substantial career. He does lots and lots. He won the European Cup, for God's sake. He was not many people have done that. He was top-class, but there was always, oh, no, yes, but can't he be just a bit more than that? And, I think his style didn't. I mean, Kevin Keegan always looked like he was doing everything he possibly could. I mean, and he was, because that was the nature of Kevin Keegan, as we've discussed at length in the couple of paragraphs ago. But Trevor Francis always looked a little bit, and Glenn Hoddle the same. He always looked languid. Now, that depends on your view of football. Is that elegant? Is that a nice thing? Is that great? Or is he a lazy bastard who should be doing a little bit more running around? And, I think that, oh my God, even here we are 40 odd years on, that's still the perennial England dichotomy. We're never quite sure what it is that we want. We want them to be fantastic and elegant and world class and marvellous and have great touch. And also we want them to be running at 100 miles an hour for 90 minutes, never stopping. I don't think that happens very often anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's the superhero complex, isn't it? That's why, certainly the media was so pro Brian Robson throughout the 1980s, ahead of the likes of Glenn Hoddle. Those more artistic visionaries, being, I don't know, kind of lambasted in comparison to the all-action superhero that's getting their underpants over the trousers in the phone box before, dislocating the shoulder 3 times in one season, all of that type of thing. Yeah, 1-0 to England. A rush of blood from the Bulgarian goalkeeper, Hristov. He has a mixed night of it. There's the Ray Wilkins puts one high and wide after an excellent team move. Hristov saves from Francis after a Hoddle slalom. Fantastic Hoddle slalom. Hoddle from distance, hits one that's not too far away from the angle of Hristof's left hand top corner. Depends on what. I mean, Dave, I'll throw this one out to you. Barry Davies declares it the goalkeeper's right hand post. Right? Do we declare if you're declaring the goalkeeper, it's the goalkeeper's bottom left hand corner? Say, are we talking from the goal scorer's perspective, or are we talking from the goalkeeper's perspective?
If you're saying it's the goalkeeper's bottom left hand corner, it must be the goalkeeper.
It's the goalkeeper's left hand corner, isn't it? Yeah, it's the striker's bottom right. It's the goalkeeper. So if you're telling that from the goalkeeper's perspective, then that's what it is. It's yeah. So it was the goalkeeper's top left hand corner. It was Hoddle's top right. So let's just we need to clear these things up, Dave.
There's written match reports for 20 odd years. This is a constant thorn in the side whenever I'm writing them. I never quite.
Yeah, it's very much like the referee and kind of interpretation, shall we say, interpretation of the situation. But yes,
important to clear these things up.
It is important to clear these things up. We like transparency at Your Boys Tech Elevator. 1-0 at half time. Woodcock has one as well. A wild shot from a Keith's angle that Hristov saves as well. Does Woodcock mean that?
It's a good question. I'm not entirely convinced that he does. I mean, it's a ridiculously tight angle, isn't it, to try and score from? But he gets plenty on it, and it ends up being quite a decent save.
It's a decent save. Oh. It is a decent save. Into the second half, Woodcock should have scored with an header. He tries to be a bit too clever. As Barry Davies picks up on, he tries to plant it into the turf, so it's difficult for his stuff to deal with. But he absolutely fluffs it. And then typically there's a break. A la kind of like Gregor's Lato, Poland, 1973, and all of that. Clements, on a very quiet night, is forced into a fine save from Andrea Zalewskov, I think we shall call him there. I think Barry Davies pronounces it a whole lot better than I do. But it's the one Bulgarian break that we get to see in this footage. Not to say it's the only one to do. It might well be the only moment of peril for England. The 8.5 minutes that we are permitted. This is the sum total of Bulgaria's endeavour going forward, Dave.
It is a good save, though, isn't it? I mean, yeah,
it's a good save.
We have to assume that Ray Clemens has been stood at the far end in the freezing November cold, doing very little over the course of the evening. But when he has to make that save, it's a really top class save and proves exactly why he should have always been in goal instead of Peter Shilton.
He certainly does, and rightly so. Until Don Howe's influence starts to permeate the situation, shall we say.
Let's not go into Don here. No.
Yeah, there's a point in time when Ron Greenwood is defiantly calling the shots without interference, shall we say, from a pragmatic coach. 2-0, Hoddle has his moment of glory. It's a fantastic goal. The technique, the side foot from distance, the layoff from Francis is excellent. First time, side-footed, roof of the net. Hristov maybe should keep it out. He does get a hand to it. It's one of those that a keeper gets a hand to. It's a fantastic shot. You could say he's done well to get a hand to it, or maybe he should get a stronger hand to it and stop it. I'm going to with he did well to get a hand to it because he's not the tallest goalkeeper, Hristov.
And he's caught out, I think, because the fact that he takes it first time and just side foots it. I mean, as the ball comes across to him, as a goalkeeper, you'd be setting yourself for him to take a touch and then hitting it. And Glenn Hoddle just strolls onto it and clips it with the side of the foot into the roof of the net. I mean, it's a great goal. Perfect way to crown a really strong debut. And, it's one of those moments where, Barry Davies says somewhere in the commentary, there's no doubt that this player is international quality. And that just sort of sums up the whole evening for Hoddle. I mean, it's a terrific finish. It's what Glenn Hoddle's been doing, for 2 or 3 seasons at this point. And it does look like, to go in the cliche, a star is born. This looks like the beginning of Glenn Hoddle never being out of the England side. There we are.
Yes, what could possibly go wrong, Dave? Everything is looking very rosy for the future, both in terms of the individual and the collective there. I'm sure glory is just round the corner.
I look forward to us discussing the European Championships at length.
Absolutely. We will be covering the 1980 European Championship finals at the end of the season, whether you like it or not. Francis is denied. No, he is denied by Christoph. I'd say a mixed night for Christoph. He does pull off a fine save from Francis. He's denied the goal he deserves there, I think, on his night's work, from what we see of the footage. And we reached the final whistle without too much of a sweat there for England. Hoddle, undeniably the star, but Francis, I think Francis is just unlucky in terms of not getting the headlines there out of the sheer magnetism of Hoddle's performance day.
I think one of the things is Trevor Francis is sort of taking on the Kevin Keegan mantle for the game. I mean, he's the all-action kind of player. He's the one who's going to make things happen. He's the one that won't let the game rest. He's all over the place. He's creating. He's taking shots. And possibly for the next 2 years, because Kevin Keegan was always there, that kind of overshadows Trevor Francis. And maybe by the time Keegan's finished, after the World Cup in '82, perhaps Francis has gone past his best as well. And then he never quite gets the England credit that he should have got, or the England opportunities that he should have got. But on this performance, he's outstanding, isn't he? Really, as you say, it's only because Glenn Hoddle's playing that we're not waxing on about how great Trevor Francis was.
Absolutely. England have qualified for the European Championships, Dave. We're expecting big things from them.
They're going to go there as favourites, surely, inevitably.
Football's coming home. 15, about a good 18 years, 16 years before it didn't ultimately come home either.
It'll never come home.
What are we thinking of this New England strip? That's looming as well.
I've never quite understood what the obsession is with getting blue into an England strip. The taking over of the Union Jack, which isn't the England flag. I mean, that's imperialist nonsense, isn't it? Really.
Admiral and the wild ideas, Dave.
I do like the strip actually, but I never quite understand why blue's a former part of England.
Absolutely, I agree with that. It's a colour that's just not. No, it's not right. Certain shades of it, anyway. Talking of blue, subsection 1.10, paragraph 2 is going to take us to an arena of blue, Dave, for the first time this season as well. We've got a bit of Ipswich Town coming up.
Ipswich Town have had a major struggle all through the season, just winning at Derby in the previous weekend, perhaps on the way back up. But it's been for a team that obviously won the cup in '78 and has been fairly consistent all the way through the 1970s. For Ipswich to be struggling the way they are with the players that they've got is a big surprise. So it'll be interesting to see them take on Southampton. It
will indeed. Looking forward to that one. Please do join us, subscribe, spread the word. We are Your Boys Took a Hell of a Beating, and this is the continuing odyssey of 1979-80 revisited. Do join us again next time. Thank you and goodbye.